Hello everybody and welcome to episode 3 of my Grim Dawn basic series. Today we're gonna talk about devotions and also how to respec devotions and mastery skills. We're gonna start off right where we left off in the last episode and head right into the game here and into the devotions. Now apart from masteries and skills, this game also has devotions. Devotions are basically your third mastery. Note that you can use one mastery here, you can choose your second mastery at level 10, and then you will also be able to choose devotions once you have devotion points. Now the way this works is you find shrines in the world of Grim Dawn and the world of Cairn, and there are two different ways to gain the favor of those shrines. Either you have to cleanse the shrines from some foul creatures that live within, or you will have to repair the shrine using some materials that you found earlier, or that you have to craft even at the blacksmith, which you will also find later in the game, later in Act 1 at least. And yeah, then you will check this devotion page here and you will probably be a little bit overwhelmed. I mean, it's not as big as PoE's skill tree, but I remember that the very first time I opened this in the game, I was like, whoa, okay, I have no fucking clue what should I do here. So we're gonna check out devotions a little bit more in depth now in Grim Tools. So these are the devotions in Grim Dawn, and you will have them like this, right? You will only be able to see like the crossroads first and then the rest. Now the way devotions work in this game is you have 5 different affinities: Ascendant, Chaos, Eldritch, Order, and Primordial. I'm just gonna refer to these as purple, red, green, yellow, and blue from now on. That probably makes things a little bit easier for you as well. Now at first you have these crossroads. These just give you one affinity, one green, one red, one blue, one yellow, one purple affinity, just for like completing the one star here and nothing else. So for example, if you choose the purple one, all other devotions here that require one purple will highlight and you will be able to choose them with like your additional points that you will get. And the same for green, red, blue, and yellow. Now, you also can kind of distinguish tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 devotions in this game. Tier 1 devotions are devotions that only require one single affinity from one single color. Tier 2 devotions are devotions that usually require either 2 or 3 different colors, and they not only require one of those, but more than one of those. For example, the Assassin requires 6 purple and 4 yellow, and it will give you, once completed, 1 purple and 1 yellow. And then you also have the tier 3 devotions, which only have requirements and will not have any completion bonus, right? For example, the Obelisk of Men here needs 8 yellow and 15 blue. Tier 3 also usually need like either 2 or 3 different colors. Like the Obelisk needs 2 different ones. Azraka, for example, needs 3 different ones. Ultos also needs 3 different ones, right? And yeah, so first of all, you would obviously only be able to pick one of these, and then you will be able to pick one of the tier 1 devotions here. Let's pick a devotion that is generally considered pretty solid defensively on any starting character. For example, we can use the Satyr's Guide. Bunch of defensive stats here, movement speed, which is great early on as well. And once you complete this, you will see that you will have now 6 blue affinity instead of 1 only, right? Now what you can also do is you can go back to the Spirit Guide and take out this point here, because this devotion, once completed, gives you 5, requires only 1, so it will be able to sustain itself. So this way you will have another point free now that you can use for something else, right? And this creates some interesting this is like an interesting system, because you will be able to try to min-max this devotion tree as well, so that you have as little affinity requirements here, but get like the most out of your devotions, right? And early on, I would suggest you to just like take one of these good tier 1 devotions. For example, Satyrs Guide is pretty good defensively, but they are also devotions that have a red node here, as you can see, right? Like all these white nodes, they're just passives. These will have like passive stats that will apply to your character, and then you have red nodes here, like red stars, and these are active abilities, which will either be activated on attack, when you attack with a certain ability, or they will be activated on block, or just when hit. And they will have a certain chance to be activated when hit, or when blocked, or on attack, depending on which skill you bind it to, usually. Especially the ones that are on attack, it will matter a lot to which like ability you will bind those, and some of them will like synergize better together, some will synergize worse together, and thus you will get more or less procs out of your abilities, like out of your devotion abilities. Yeah. There are also some that require you to crit, like Assassin's Mark, for example, requires you to crit, so this will only work when you crit. This is also pretty good to usually, well, use in combination with high offensive ability, which makes it easier for you to crit, and it also it's pretty nice to use this with like a skill that ticks, because when that skill ticks, you have like a chance to crit on every single tick, right? So you cast the spell once, and then it will tick all the time, and chances are higher on average that one of those ticks will proc it than when you only use this on like a single hit skill, right? So yeah, we talked about Satyrs Guide being pretty well defensively for tier 1 devotion. And then there are like some other tier 1 devotions that are really great for certain damage types. You can usually check those out in my how to level certain mastery videos as well. Pretty good for poison, for example, Scorpion Sting, good for Vitality and Pierce early on as Twin Fangs, also for Pierce pretty nice as Assassin's Mark, that's also very good for physical. Falcon is good for physical and bleed early on. Tsunami is good early on for cold and lightning. Aether Fire is good for fire and aether. Flame Torrent is good for fire and chaos early on. So early on it's pretty nice to give your character like an offensive boost. Like, apart from Satyrs Guide, I would probably suggest a new player to choose one of these like tier 1 devotions with a red star, because that way you will boost your damage quite a bit early on. And remember, you can take out all these points later, you can respec everything here. Like, this only will cost you iron bits and aether crystals, so it's not really that expensive. The cost goes up a bit, yeah, but I mean, there has to be like some punishment for like respeccing constantly. But overall, Grim Dawn is very respec friendly, so feel free to like test some things that you would like to try here. But also remember one more thing, all these red nodes, they actually level with you. So for example, this one says level 25, so that means that max level is 25, so you start at level 1, and this will need a certain amount of experience, it will tell you in the game, to like level up. And it will only level when you have this attached to one of your skills. If you have an unattached devotion here, it will not level, and also if you respec out of a devotion, it will not level. And yeah, if you like spec into a new one, it will start at level 1, unless you've already picked it earlier, then it will like continue at the level that it was before you spec'd out of it. After like the first couple of tier 1 devotions, it is usually worth checking out which devotions give you resistance reduction for the damage type you're dealing. For example, for cold and acid you want the Rumor, for fire chaos you want Eldritch Fire, for aether lightning you want Arcane Bomb, for bleeding you would want the Rend, for physical you want Assassin's Mark, what else, for vitality you want Ratouche, and so on, right? And then you can also check out the tier 3 devotions, what they do, which damage types they deal, or like which defenses they give you, and then you will see the requirements here, and then you will kind of backtrack a bit and check out, okay, how many of these tier 1 and tier 3 or like tier 1, tier 2 devotions do I need to get to those tier 3 devotions. Now, apart from early game damaging devotions and also tier 2 resistance reduction devotions and tier 3 devotions, I want to show you my favorite defensive devotions in this game, because defense is really important in Grim Dawn, especially when you play hardcore. Number 1 would be the Watcher. The Watcher gives you a lot of physique, cold resistance, pierce resistance, DA and physique, and also 4% DA here. Now, this did get nerfed from 5% down to 4%, but it's still pretty good, and it's still one of my favorite devotions. Really good for tier 1 defensive devotion is the Ghoul, especially, or like usually only really strong when you have weapon damage, when you have a lot of weapon damage, so either when you use a default attack replacer or when you use a skill that has a high percent of weapon damage, or at least sometimes, like for Ghoul, actually you don't need that high percent of weapon damage, like any percent weapon damage on your main ability will be enough for this to be really good. Really good defensive tier 1 devotion. I also very often take this while leveling early on as well. Pretty nice, pretty good lifesaver. The bat, I already talked about this before. This is also very nice defensively, gives you a lot of lifesteal and can be used for pretty much any type of caster when you can convert this vitality or pierce damage to the damage type that your character is dealing. So another tier 2 devotion that is really nice defensively, but it's a little bit more niche than Ghoul and Bat, is the Behemoth. The Behemoth is really good when you can combine it with a Circuit Breaker that procs at around 60% of your HP. So Giant's Bat here is really good when you combine it with Blast Shield or Resilience, for example. The Phoenix, well, the nodes are not that great. I mean, they're pretty decent. This one's pretty nice defensively, Chaos Resistance here. It's like Aether Elemental stuff, and this one is really good offensively as well, actually, with 10% crit damage. That's really good for any type of build as well. And then the node, like the node is the juicy part here. This one actually gives you up to 168 flat damage absorption. You might know that flat damage absorption is like one of the best defensive layers in the game already, because it comes last after all the resistances, etc. 168 damage doesn't seem like a high value, but take into account that this will absorb last. So first of all, the damage that you take will be reduced by resistances. It will also before that be reduced by enemy debuffs that reduce enemy damage. And then it will, if it's physical, be reduced by armor before this as well. And then last but not least, it will be like absorbed by this, like the remaining damage will be partly absorbed by this damage absorption here. Now that value still might not look too amazing, but the thing is, you can stack this together with, say, Inquisitor's Seal or Ascension, and also with percent absorption together, and that's when you will start accumulating lots of absorption. One more tier 1 devotion I want to highlight here is the Guardian's Gaze. Now this one got buffed now in patch 1.1.5. Now this also has more weapon damage than before and also 5% lifesteal. So this is kinda like the bat now. It is very similar. Guardian's Gaze can proc more often than Twin Fangs, as you can see. Also, once procced, this eye that spawns will circle around your character and can hit, one eye can hit the same enemy multiple times. But it also only circles around your character. It doesn't fly from your character towards the enemies like the Twin Fangs do. So I currently like Twin Fangs more for casters, for ranged characters, and Guardian's Gaze is probably the better version of Twin Fangs for melee characters that are in the thick of it. Also, last but not least, when it comes to defensive devotions, is the Tortoise. The Tortoise is, well, it's okay. It's really good, especially early on. If you're a new player and you're starting off in hardcore, I recommend to take a look at Turtle Shell and use this as well. I don't think it's as good as, say, for example, Ghoul or Bat or Guardian's Gaze, but it's pretty solid and sometimes can be also used as an additional defensive source that you might even use in the endgame. Usually though, this kind of falls off towards the endgame because the sheer damage absorption doesn't really scale that well into the endgame. But it's okay, and yeah, you can sometimes use it even in the endgame. Most of the time though, This is really good for like leveling, especially like if you're a new player and you want like that one additional circuit breaker basically for your character. Later on though, it's most of the time not quite good enough to be used, but you should always consider it. Also, the Ulo devotion is kind of unique because, well, not only does this give you some nice resistances, but also the cleansing waters proc here basically works the same way as nullification of Arcanist. So if you would like to play nullification on a non-Arcanist mastery class, you can choose to go for Ulo and then bind this to a skill that you only like use on demand, and then that skill is basically a nullification for you. Now the winner game has a total of 50 devotion points you can have, whereas starting with the first expansion, Ashes of Mammoth, the game expanded to 55 devotion points. And also there are some tier 1, 2, and 3 devotions that are exclusive to the expansions, so AOM added some and FG added some as well. Now usually an endgame devotion page will look something like this. These are my Pyromancer devotions for my Obsidian Dream Chaos Pyromancer. And for example here I have 2 tier 3 devotions, 1, 2 tier 2 devotions, no 3 tier 2 devotions actually, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tier 1 devotions, and 1 point here in the crossroads. So, but I mean, many different ways to do this are viable, depending on like the type of build you do, depending on the damage type, depending on the playstyle. You can have like up to 3 tier 3 devotions, and or like have less tier 3 devotions but have more tier 2 devotions. It kind of depends. Not always it's like 3 tier 2 devotions or 3 tier 3 devotions the way to go. Sometimes you want, I don't know, only 1 tier 3 devotion, but like say 4 tier 2 devotions. Sometimes you want 3 tier 3, only 1 tier 2, so only tier 1s, right? That kind of depends on the build. And this example, as it is a chaos build, we have the mandatory chaos resistance reduction from Eldritch Fire. We have Ghoul as a defensive proc, since I'm using lots of weapon damage here. I'm using this as a tier 1 damage devotion, which I was using for leveling. This is not mandatory later for the build, but it fits pretty nicely in here still. And then we have this tier 3 devotion here, focusing on chaos, and this other one here, also alongside the very nice defensive devotion Solemn Watcher here, which is like solid in almost any character. And then, because this is a two-handed build, well, the Kraken is pretty strong for two-handers. As you can see here, this is pretty nice for two-handers. There are some other weapon-exclusive devotions, like the Kraken is exclusive for two-handers. There's the Oclane's Lantern, which is exclusive for scepters, daggers, and caster offhands. There's the Rowan's Scepter, which is exclusive for maces. And then they have the Berserker, which is exclusive for axes, and we have the Blades of Anadan, which is exclusive for swords, and additionally we have the Hydra, which requires any kind of ranged weapon. And let's also not forget about the Shield Maiden, which requires a shield. Also, obviously, all of the chants on block, red devotion starts here, active devotions only work when you have a shield in the first place as well. So yeah, this is gonna be it for the devotions in Grim Tools. If you have any questions regarding that, feel free to ask me anything in the comments. I'm gonna go ahead here and show you some in-game clips of me taking the first shrine of Cairn, and then assigning some devotion points, and also show you guys how to respec attribute points, devotion points, and skill points, and mastery power points. Now, once you've killed the reanimator and done the first quest, you will also encounter your very first ruined shrine here, in the Barrier Cave. You can just offer this thing an Aether Crystal and you will gain a devotion point in return. Now, once you've done the first quest, you can enter the Devil's Crossing here, the prison, and you will find a spirit guide on the top corner here, the northern corner. Zadina is her name, and this is where you can respec stuff. So I've already like accumulated some levels, as you can see here, and also some devotion points. 5 of them here in this case. Let's say I want to go for the candle devotion, right? So you got 1 point here, or let's say, actually, maybe I want to take the raven instead. Okay, so we got the raven here. And Now, I already completed these, right? Now I have 6 screens now, and thus only needs 1, right? But it gives me 5. So what I can do now here is go to this arena, click on devotions here, and now I just click on the point that I wanna like retrieve. In this case, the one from the crossroads, for example. There we go, 1 point available. Now I can put this onto like wherever I want. Wherever I could, like I could put it here, I could put it somewhere else. I'm gonna go for the blues here in this case, because I wanna go for the Kraken as soon as possible on a Shaman, using a two-hander. So yeah, that's how you respec devotions, and also you can do the same for all attributes, and I mean over all skills and mastery points. Now if you don't have any expansion, if you only have vanilla, then you will not be able to refund points from your stat bar down here. If you do, however, you can just click here, and then to like refund the points down here. It costs like 25 iron bits per point at the start, and this will like be increasingly more expensive the more you use this feature. Also, you can like take out some points from skills again, and then put them back to somewhere else where you would like to, like here or here, whatever. And yeah, this is how you respec skill points and devotion points. But don't worry, there are different spirit guides as well in this game. There's one in the Covenant's Refuge in Act 5. She's called Novi here, and she can do just the same services as the other spirit guide in Respeccing did. Respec, devotion, skills, and mastery points. And there's also another spirit guide over here in the Steel Cap district in Act 6. She's called Rina, and again, she does the same stuff. And last but not least, you have also Bagala in Act 7. Now, there's also attribute points, right? And there's another way how you can respec those. You need potions for that. These are called potions of, or like tonic of reshaping and tonic of clarity. Now, the tonic of clarity is a way to reset all of your devotions at once. Say you have like 55 devotions already assigned, and you don't want to like spend 55 aether crystals to like take them all out and use like some different devotions, right? You can just use a tonic of clarity in this case to reset all of your devotions points at once. Let's use one here. And yeah, there you see like all 5 points are back here. And the way how you reset your attributes is you have this tonic of reshaping here, and you use it, and boom, you get all your attributes back, and now you can reassign them the way you want. I would not advise you to use them just as I did right now. Usually these are not that easy to get. You get these starting in Act 5, 6 and 7. Like, these don't exist in vanilla game, these are only like they exist with the first expansion, Ashes of Mammoth. So these can drop in Act 5, 6 and 7. You also get them from like some quests in 5, 6 and 7. And also later on, especially in Ultimate, these will also drop from like some, for example, Nemesis monsters or like other, well, bigger purple bosses. I think they have like a chance to drop from them as well. This is gonna be it for episode 3. Thank you so much everyone for watching, and hit that like and or subscribe button in case you haven't yet, if you like to see more of my content like GD Basic series and all my other content as well.